At a busy branch of a well-known bank in downtown Chicago, Samuel Hayes, a black businessman and founder of Hayes Financial Group, walked in quietly one morning. Dressed simply in a light blue shirt, khaki pants, and comfortable sneakers, Samuel wanted nothing more than to withdraw $15,000 from his personal account, a routine transaction any customer should expect to complete without hassle. As he approached the teller's counter, he noticed a middle-aged white man just ahead of him, smoothly withdrawing $20,000 without a single question or delay. The man received the cash with a warm smile from the teller and left confidently unnoticed by anyone. Samuel took a deep breath and stepped forward, hopeful for the same easy service. However, the teller behind the counter, a woman named Laura Jenkins, barely glanced at Samuel before pushing a clipboard toward him with a cold, detached tone. "Fill this out," she said brusquely, offering no greeting or friendly acknowledgement. Something about her attitude felt different, unwelcoming, and sharp, unlike the courteous service Samuel had come to expect. After filling out the withdrawal slip, Samuel handed over his identification and the form, expecting a quick and simple process. Instead, Laura looked only at the amount he wanted to withdraw and immediately rejected the transaction. "We can't process this withdrawal," she said curtly. Confused, Samuel pointed out the customer before him had withdrawn an even larger sum with no issue. Laura's eyes flicked toward her manager's office, where a woman named Patricia Clark watched silently. Samuel realized then that this was no mistake. Laura was acting on unspoken orders fueled by bias. Despite his calm and polite requests for explanation, Patricia's presence only reinforced Laura's refusal. The words security protocol were thrown around as justification, but Samuel knew it was nothing more than an excuse to deny him service. As other customers glanced nervously and the atmosphere grew tense, Samuel understood the painful truth: he was being singled out because of his skin color, not because of any real policy. The bank he had built, the institution he had worked tirelessly to create, was treating him like a stranger, questioning his right to access his own money. At a busy branch of a well-known bank in downtown Chicago, Charles Walker, a black businessman and founder of Walker Financial Group, walked in one crisp morning dressed casually in a light blue shirt, khaki pants, and sneakers. He wasn't here for a big meeting or a press conference, just a routine withdrawal of $15,000 from his personal account. This was a simple transaction, something any loyal customer should expect to complete without trouble. As Charles approached the teller counter, he noticed a white man ahead of him smoothly withdrawing $20,000 in cash. The teller smiled warmly and handed the money over without hesitation or question. Charles took a steadying breath and stepped forward, hoping for the same courteous service. But instead, the teller, a woman named Laura Jenkins, barely looked at him. She slid a clipboard across the counter with a curt, cold tone, telling him to fill out a form without any greeting or acknowledgement. After Charles completed the paperwork and handed over his ID, Laura immediately rejected the withdrawal, claiming they could not process such a large cash request. When Charles pointed out the white customer had just done the exact same thing without issue, Laura's eyes darted toward her manager's office, where Patricia Clark watched silently, clearly approving the teller's behavior. It became painfully clear to Charles that this wasn't about bank policy or security, it was racial profiling. Despite his calm and polite insistence that he was entitled to access his own money, the staff refused to serve him. Other customers shifted uncomfortably, some watching in silence while no one spoke up. Eventually, security was called and Charles was escorted out like a criminal, his ID thrown carelessly to the floor. Only then, after the situation escalated and the branch's senior executive was called, was justice served. The manager was fired on the spot. For discrimination bias training was ordered for all involved, and Charles was finally able to complete his withdrawal. This incident exposed the harsh reality of prejudice even within places Black Americans have built and trusted. But Charles's steady strength and refusal to be silenced sparked accountability and change, reminding everyone that dignity and respect are rights, not privileges. One ordinary afternoon at an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city, David Mitchell, a distinguished Black official and director of internal affairs, sought a rare moment of peace over lunch. Dressed sharply but unassumingly in a dark gray suit, David hoped to enjoy a quiet meal away from the pressures of his demanding role overseeing police conduct and city governance. However, tranquility was shattered the moment Officer James Harris, clearly intoxicated and agitated, burst into the restaurant with a storm of fury. Without warning, Harris loudly demanded the seat David occupied, insisting it was his usual spot. His aggressive tone and threatening demeanor instantly drew the attention of everyone in the room. Patrons stopped mid-conversation, forks paused in mid-air, and a tense silence settled. David, calm but alert, refused to be intimidated. He explained politely that the hostess had seated him there and he had every right to remain. But Harris, fueled by a mix of anger and prejudice, leaned in hand, twitching near his holstered gun, his eyes blazing with hostility. In a terrifying escalation, Harris suddenly drew his weapon and aimed it squarely at David's chest, freezing the restaurant in stunned disbelief. The scene was chaotic yet strangely quiet as guests ducked behind tables and phones secretly recorded every moment. Despite the danger, David maintained his composure, his voice steady as he commanded Harris to lower his weapon. The tension mounted until a young officer, Sarah Johnson, newly assigned and visibly nervous, entered and ordered Harris to stand down. Just as the situation seemed to reach its breaking point, the restaurant's sound system crackled to life with the authoritative voice of Chief Brenda Lawson, ordering Harris to disarm and surrender immediately. Harris hesitated, then reluctantly lowered his gun as law enforcement officers arrived to take him into custody. Chief Lawson's swift arrival and decisive actions underscored the gravity of the incident. She publicly condemned Harris's behavior, emphasizing that the police department does not tolerate abuse of power or racial intimidation. Within hours, Harris was relieved of duty, stripped of his badge and firearm, and faced criminal charges. The incident sparked outrage across the city, leading to large protests demanding police accountability and reform. David Mitchell, standing firm in the face of danger, became a symbol of resilience and justice, inspiring calls for systemic change. His courage reminded everyone that respect and dignity are not privileges reserved for some, but rights owed to all, regardless of race or position. In a quiet park in Atlanta, 14-year-old Elijah Carter was enjoying a peaceful afternoon reading a book under the shade of an old oak tree. Dressed simply in a t-shirt and jeans, Elijah was absorbed in his story, unaware that nearby a woman named Linda Simmons was watching him with suspicion. Without any real cause, Linda accused Elijah of loitering and promptly called the police, her voice laced with mistrust and bias. When officers arrived, Elijah was confronted aggressively despite showing no signs of wrongdoing. The officers questioned him harshly, making him feel out of place and unwelcome in his own neighborhood. Passers-by stopped to watch the scene unfold, some uncomfortable but uncertain about intervening. Elijah's fear grew as the police seemed intent on escalating the situation unnecessarily. The turning point came when Elijah's mother, Monica Carter, the city's mayor and a respected community leader, arrived at the scene. Calm but resolute, Monica stepped forward and addressed the officers firmly. She demanded that they respect Elijah's rights and treat him with dignity. Her presence shifted the atmosphere instantly. Monica spoke about the importance of accountability and the need for anti-bias training within the police force. Monica then publicly called for systemic changes to prevent such incidents from happening again. She emphasized that no child or anyone should be judged by the color of their skin or mistaken for a threat simply because of where they are or what they are doing. Her intervention not only halted the unjust questioning, but also sparked a broader conversation about race trust and community safety. Linda Simmons, confronted by the mayor's authority and the reality of her baseless accusations, apologized sincerely. She later volunteered to participate in community programs aimed at fostering understanding and reducing racial bias. This gesture marked a hopeful step towards healing and mutual respect. Following the incident, Monica worked closely with the police chief to implement comprehensive anti-bias training for officers and established community outreach programs to rebuild trust between law enforcement and residents. These efforts aimed to create a safer, more inclusive environment where everyone, regardless of background, could feel secure and respected. Elijah returned to his reading spot now with a renewed sense of belonging and pride. The community witnessed a meaningful shift, one where dialogue and action began to break down long-standing barriers of prejudice. Monica's leadership inspired many, reminding everyone that justice and fairness require vigilance and courage, especially when protecting the youngest and most vulnerable. This story highlights not only the challenges faced by Black youth in America, but also the power of family leadership and community in fostering real change. It serves as a hopeful reminder that progress is possible when people come together with empathy and determination. In a bustling city park in Atlanta, 14-year-old Elijah Carter was quietly reading a book when an unexpected confrontation began. A woman named Linda Simmons, unfamiliar with Elijah, accused him of loitering and called the police. The officers arrived quickly and began questioning Elijah in a way that felt aggressive and unfair despite the boy doing nothing wrong. The situation escalated, casting a shadow over what had been a peaceful afternoon. As Elijah stood there surrounded by the heavy stares of strangers and the intimidating presence of police officers, his mother, Monica Carter, arrived on the scene. Monica was no ordinary parent. She was the mayor of Atlanta, a respected leader who had dedicated her career to serving the community and fighting for justice. Calm and composed, Monica approached the officers and firmly demanded they treat her son with the respect and fairness every citizen deserves. Monica's presence brought immediate change. She challenged the officers' assumptions and made clear that racial bias had no place in law enforcement. With her authority and courage, Monica insisted on accountability, calling for anti-bias training for the entire police department to prevent such wrongful treatment in the future. Her intervention not only diffused the tense moment, but also sent a strong message about dignity and equality. The woman who had called the police, Linda Simmons, was left speechless by Monica's unwavering stance. Later, she apologized for her actions and even volunteered to participate in programs aimed at fostering better understanding within the community. This was a small but meaningful step toward healing and reconciliation. Following the incident, Monica worked closely with the police chief to implement systemic changes. These included mandatory anti-bias training and community outreach programs designed to rebuild trust between residents and law enforcement. The goal was to ensure that no child or adult would ever feel targeted or unwelcome simply because of their race or appearance. Elijah returned to the park this time with a renewed sense of pride and security. His mother's leadership had sparked a wider conversation in the city about racial profiling and fairness. The community began to see hope in the possibility of real change driven by courage, respect, and a commitment to justice. This story serves as a powerful reminder that standing up against injustice, especially from within positions of leadership, can bring about lasting positive transformation for everyone. In a quiet suburban playground in Charlotte, a young black boy named Jamal Wilson was enjoying his afternoon when an unfortunate incident unfolded. A woman named Karen Mitchell, who was visiting the park, suddenly slapped Jamal in front of other children and parents. She had wrongly accused him of misbehavior, and her actions shocked everyone around. What she didn't know was that Jamal's father, Michael Wilson, was a highly respected federal agent with years of experience in law enforcement and security. When Michael arrived at the playground, he quickly assessed the situation. His calm but authoritative presence immediately changed the atmosphere. Karen, realizing the gravity of the moment and who she had just crossed, became speechless. Michael didn't raise his voice or make a scene. Instead, with quiet strength, he explained to Karen why her behavior was unacceptable and how important it was to treat every child with respect and dignity regardless of their background. This incident was not just about one woman's misunderstanding or rash action. It highlighted the larger issues of racial bias and assumptions that can affect children and families daily. Michael's role as a federal agent gave him a platform to address these challenges head-on, emphasizing the need for empathy and fairness in community interactions. As word spread, the local community began to rally behind Jamal and his family. Parents, educators, and local leaders came together to discuss how to create safer, more inclusive environments for all children. Karen, realizing the harm her actions caused, took responsibility and committed herself to learning about cultural sensitivity and anti-bias awareness. The Wilson family's response was a powerful example of resilience and dignity. Michael's approach showed that confronting injustice doesn't always require confrontation. It can be done through calm dialogue and education. This story inspired many to reflect on their own biases and to work towards building a community where every child feels safe, seen, and valued. Ultimately, this moment in the playground became a turning point, a reminder that respect and understanding are the foundations of a just society, and that each of us has a role to play in making that society a reality for the next generation. In a bustling city center, a well-known black entrepreneur named Cameron Ross faced a challenging moment on a live television show. Cameron was the CEO of Sentinel Corp, a successful cybersecurity company that had just secured a major federal contract worth $180 million. Invited to speak about his company's success and diversity in the tech industry, Cameron was ready to share his story. But the host, Sienna Carr, began the interview with a loaded question that cast doubt on his achievements, implying that his success might be due to diversity programs rather than his hard work and talent. Cameron responded calmly but firmly, dismantling the host's assumptions with clarity and conviction. He explained the difficulties black entrepreneurs often face in accessing funding and recognition. His words went beyond just defending himself. They highlighted systemic challenges in the business world that are rarely discussed openly. Cameron's articulate and honest answers quickly went viral, sparking widespread discussion across the nation. Despite the backlash from some viewers and the loss of a few sponsors, Cameron stood firm. He refused to let the criticism silence him. Instead, he chose to use the attention as a platform to call for greater accountability and systemic change in the corporate and tech worlds. His courage inspired many, especially younger entrepreneurs who saw in him a role model for resilience and unapologetic truth-telling. Recognizing the impact of the conversation, Cameron later agreed to a special televised program where he would have full editorial control. This opportunity allowed him to delve deeper into the issues of racial bias, inequality, and meritocracy in business, sharing insights that challenged viewers to rethink their perspectives. Cameron Ross's story is a testament to the power of perseverance and authenticity. It shows that success is not just about individual effort, but also about confronting the barriers that exist for so many. His journey encourages communities to support one another and pushes institutions to be more just and inclusive. In the end, Cameron's experience reminds us that real progress requires honest conversations and the courage to stand up for what is right even when it's difficult. His voice continues to resonate, inspiring change and hope in the world of business and beyond. Marcus Bennett, a Black CEO and founder of Bennett Financial Branch in Chicago, walked into his own bank one morning for a routine withdrawal of $15,000. Dressed simply in khaki pants and a light blue shirt, Marcus blended into the crowd. But what happened next shocked everyone. Despite being the bank's owner and CEO, he was met with suspicion, denied service, and treated as an outsider. A teller refused to process his withdrawal without valid reason, while a white customer just moments before had withdrawn more money effortlessly. Security was called, and Marcus was forcibly removed from the bank, his ID carelessly thrown to the floor. The injustice was clear, a painful example of racial profiling even in a place he had built with his own hands. Yet Marcus did not let this break him. Instead, he called David Carter, a senior executive who arrived swiftly to confront the staff. The bank manager who had allowed such discrimination was fired on the spot, mandatory bias training was ordered, and Marcus's loyal security guard Jamal Brooks was promoted. Finally, Marcus was able to complete his withdrawal with dignity restored. This story reminds us of the painful realities many face despite their success and accomplishments. It teaches us that no matter how far we climb, we must remain vigilant and ready to stand up against injustice, not only for ourselves, but for others who might suffer in silence. Life lesson. True strength is not just in success, but in standing firm against unfairness and using your voice to demand respect and equality. Marcus's story inspires us to confront prejudice wherever we see it and to support one another in the fight for justice. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of resilience and hope.